it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt for a long time, and it's not going to feel any better for a while. My advice to them would be to not seek revenge. And I've seen a lot of posts about seeking revenge, and that's not the answer. It's not going to bring your baby back. It's another word of advice that I would give is don't go down a path of destruction. There's so many vices that you can use to quote unquote heal the pain, and they're just going to make things worse. In my heart, I've forgiven the young man who took my life, but it takes a while to get to that point, and they are just now experiencing this pain. I mean, it's just been a couple of days. So, I mean, they're hurting, they're angry, they want revenge, they may do things that they regret later. My advice is to just take it 1 minute at a time, even if you had to. I got that advice from Miss Debbie. But I just, it took a while. It took a long time for me to come through. And there are days where I feel like it just hit me all over again. But, you never get over it. You just go through it, and you can't self-destruct. It's not worth it. It's not going to bring your baby back. It's just, you just have to take it day by day, minute by minute.
Very good advice. We say 1 day at a time, sweet Jesus, and Debra told you go 1 hour, 1 minute at a time. Debra, you've been dealing with this. Lamina, the SUV crash was what, 2017?
2017, yeah.
Yeah, we all say it wasn't a Good Friday, even though it was on Good Friday. That's a Friday we don't want to remember as a Good Friday, but we get the historical religious replication or implications. Debra, how long has it been for you since you've lost your son, and what words of advice do you have to this young mother and father that it's, the loss is so fresh? It's just been a week now.
I lost my son in 2009. And it's been a moment. It's been a while, but as Melina says, there are some days that it just hits you as though it just happened. What they're dealing with right now is the beginning. There are 5 stages of grief, and you will experience all of them, and you can't jump from A to Z and think you don't have to go through all of them, because you will at some time have to come back. That I thank for my faith in God. That is what sustained me. And because of my faith and hope in Christ Jesus, and then I had family to surround me, family that kept me before God in prayer. The one thing that I'm going to say over and over, it's okay not to be okay. It's really okay not to be okay, because this is something that they're embarking upon, and she's 2 years old. So my God, just hold on to your sanity. Allow the emotions, but we have to be careful not to seek revenge, because now we're perpetuating violence. And you have to have an ear. Someone has to be in that house that says, let's hear what God has to say. And that's where you're going to find your peace. That's where you really have to now begin to learn to live again in this process. But it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to cry. It's okay to scream, whatever it takes for you to alleviate some of that pain. It's okay. But don't buy into the enemy and go and perpetuate violence, because, as she said, It's not going to bring your child back. It's not going to change what happened. We can't rewind the clock. We can't change what has happened. But now we have to sit down and talk and come to some type of understanding as much as possible, even though in this moment there is no understanding. You just can't, you try to wrap your mind around it and it won't happen.
Pastor Warren, what do you tell people as you're giving them guidance, and you also had to go through the pain as you were making other people strong? And I know sometimes people don't want to grieve because they want to be the strong one, especially if you're the mom or the dad in the family or the big uncle or the pastor. What do you have to say looking back on all the losses that you had, especially in 1 year you had 6, 1 year you had 6 or 7 back to back? What do you become kind of an expert in grieving, and you actually have your book of poems and prayers for difficult times. How did you keep it all together? Or did you just say, I don't have it all together, like Debra said?
Yeah, well, the thing, I'm not an expert as both of these young ladies are, because that's a personal loss. That's bone flesh of your flesh. That is part of you just died. The only thing that's closer to that is, as my mother said, who experienced a lot of death in her life, was at the bed of a lot of people. When my father passed away, he said, this is the toughest pain I've ever gone through, because, that was your other half has passed away. It's the only thing you can compare it to is when you kind of lose not just a bone of your bone or flesh, your flesh, or when you have lost a spouse. But what I tell people, because it is pain, and you have to go through those, as I learned from Evangelist Debra, those 5 stages of grief. But if you give to God, then He's able to petrify that pain. Petrify, in other words, it your strength. We have the petrified forest, in other words, that kind of happened through the flood, because of flood, and it's wiped out all the whole world. But we have dinosaurs and things that hardened to rock and became bedrock. Well, if you allow and give that thing to God, it becomes your strength, and allow it. And pain can push you to another level, because it can be either negative or it can be positive. You can use that negative way, as Debra and Amina were saying, that and trying to retaliate, which try to be revenge. Of course, the Bible says, "Vengeance is mine; I will repay." So there's no way you can repay someone and do the things that God can do, because He knows the person that did it, and He knows how to pay them back more than what we. But if you allow God to, but that is, pain will push you to another level. If you do it positively, then God can give you strength and actually redirect you in a positive way. It's a door that slams shut. When that door is slammed shut, another door will slam, because God knows how to do things the way He does it. And we don't understand what God does, no matter what the pain is. And I cannot and will not compare the pain of a loss of something that is your flesh and bone, or your to something I've gone through. We've gone through some deep pain. Even for a person that's gone through the separation of a loved one, as in divorce and all those things, but that does not compare to a sudden death to an infant, someone that's young. And the only thing you can bring comfort in, if it's someone that's very young, is that, I will see them again. If God took them now, that was the state they were going to be. And even bad things happen. We can't blame God. We got to blame there's just evil that are in the world. Evil is here. That's why we have things that are bad. It's not that God created it. It's the devil that did it. Use that pain and allow that to become your strength.
Wow, that's powerful.
Mhm.
How do you fight something abstract? You know, right now we've had 3 or 4 days in a row where there's been shooting, retaliation. I think people are struggling through that initial stage of grief, being shocked, being hit in the stomach, just, I can't believe this is my reality. And then they want closure real fast. And like one of you all mentioned about revenge. So how do you fight something that's abstract? You want to put a who to it. You want to put a name to it. How do you fight a spirit? You know, fighting COVID. We had a show on conquering COVID. We had a show on racial reconciliation and fighting discrimination and racial reconciliation and trying to heal and repair the breach. We had a show on poverty and wealth and how to break generational curses. But some tips that really, I mean, concrete tips like that help you have closure. When you say don't retaliate, so what did you do anytime, you know, my background's in psychology, and they say anytime you take away one negative behavior, you got to replace it with something positive. So if I take away the sugar, I got to replace it with some fruit or something. So you take away the anger and the rage, what physically can we do or did you do to get you to the other side of that rage and anger?
Well, you know what I did.
tell the world. You got 7,000 viewers.
I was really at a crossroads because of my family history, um, you know, drug and alcohol abuse. And, you know, when I lost my son, I was at that crossroads. I was like, you know, what else is there? You know, what else? It's hopeless now. So, you know, I was at that crossroads, and God kind of dropped dropped Kim and Pastor Warren, just dropped them right in my path. And it's funny because we've met several other times without even meeting. And so you know, when that was my, you know, that was God saying, this, you're going to go this way. You're not going to go that way. You're going to go this way. And because I, you know, because I did, I listened to God and, you know, went the way of God, and I started praying, going to church. It just, you know, it turned me into who I am now. And so it's like, Pastor Warren, I'm going to steal your quote here. He always, you know, when you can't reach someone who is at that crossroads, or someone who is looking for revenge, or someone who you can't physically or you know, mentally reach, you know, he always says, you can outrun me, but you can't outrun my prayer. So I am going to, you know, that's the only thing in my arsenal that I have. And I can't, you know, there's no other way for someone who just is not going to see beyond the red of anger. You just have to pray, you know, to pray that they make it through it and don't do anything that's going to, you know, jeopardize the rest of their life.
That's a good word right there. So if you're just now tuning into the Solution Summit, this is, I believe, our 10th or 11th week here as we talk about reconciliation, not just racial reconciliation or economic empowerment or job and career, but today we're talking about healing the heart. We're talking about crime and conflict and our culture and what we do with that. Are we trying to be the strong man and go retaliate? We want revenge. There's been a string of shootings after the baby Raylan Craig was murdered last Sunday, about a little after 3. She's 2 years old, and she was in the crossfire, and it's just, the community's hurting. We can't even imagine what the mom and the father is going through. So we're just talking about how to find that resolve. Pray, meditate is what Lamina Davis has given us today. She has lost a son in 2017 in the SUV accident, and she's are you on the other side of it? You're still going through it, or you got it all together? Where are you at in this?
There are days where I feel like I'm right at the beginning. Like I feel like, you know, something will remind me of my son, and I'm thrown right back into the reality that he's not here. And I have a good cry every once in a while, but it's gotten a lot easier. It's not as often, and it's usually at night. In the beginning, it was really hard for me to sleep because I just could not wrap my mind around it. It's like something so surreal that you just can't wrap your mind around it. And so I had a lot of trouble with that, but over time, it's been, almost 4 years now. So it's gotten easier to deal with, and I've had a lot of support from my church family. I mean, every time I feel like I'm losing my mind, I get on the phone or on Messenger, and I'm just saying what I feel, and people are praying for me, and I have that support. And there's a lot of people out here who don't have that support, and they're looking for other ways to get rid of that pain.
Debra, we're talking again about concrete tips. Lamina shared prayer and meditation. How many years has it been since your son Joseph passed away and you lost him? How long has it been, and what concrete things do you want to share with the community that is just hurting, and not just in St. Joe, but I know around the world with so many losses?
Well, again, it's been 11 years since Joey left, and there has been a lot of times when I just don't feel like I can make it, or I could take one foot and put it in front of the other. I think my greatest process is that I had to learn to push what I felt aside, because I have another son who was grieving just as hard as I was grieving. And I could see the effect, but I had to let him know, no, baby. God said only with our eyes shall we see what's going to happen to the one who has done that. We have to keep our hands clean, and we have to constantly rehearse that. The grandchildren and his daughter looking for her father. I had to give her one of his fruits so we could have scent to pacify her. And yet today, I can still see the effects of that loss. But it goes into gardening. It pushed me into ministry, to the place that I had to allow God to heal me in order for me now to go speak to women who are in this place to help them get through it, versus turning to drugs and alcohol and other types of things to sedate them. Because even when my son did the same thing, baby, when you finish drinking and you come out of the stupor, the issue is still going to be here. So it took a lot of prayer, a lot of talking, redirecting things, situations. Our garden is where it is today because I needed to put my hands in that dirt and kind of ground me and allow me to get in a place where I could have peace and quiet. So there are various things. I would never imagine myself speaking to you and speaking in this platform. I never would have imagined myself being here, but because of the propelling behind his death, it's pushed me into this place. And again, it's just learning how to live over again.
That is very...
It's kind of funny because I am a very introverted person. I don't like to go out and about and, be around people a lot. And I'd like to keep to myself. And after the accident and losing my son, I don't want to say pushed or thrust out into the spotlight, but it's like now I've been on the news, I've been speaking and public speaking and all sorts of situations. And it's like it kind of, you know, tragedy brings out a different persona. Like you have to, you don't imagine yourself being there, but you feel like now you have a voice, and now you have to speak and try and help those who are just now starting to go through what you've already been through, so that you're kind of the expert on it. It's a bad expert to, you know, kind of expert to be, but you're kind of the expert. So, you know, when, you know, when I had other, you know, mothers who've lost their sons, you know, and they would come into my messenger on Facebook and just let loose. And since I've already been at the point they are at that point, I know what to say, and I know what to do to kind of make the situation better or make them feel better. But I mean, and I have to be totally honest with them, because they're not going to feel totally better. So, and it's kind of hard to describe, but now I feel like I'm a role model in this some kind of way. But it's like tragedy kind of thrusts me into that spotlight, and it kind of it manifests itself in different ways to different people. But now I'm like a spokesperson. it's kind of weird, but kind of a spokesperson.
Debra,
and I think my brother, Pastor Warren, because we're 10 years apart, and he came in my home shortly after my son had passed on, and he just walked in and said, you know what? I've been following you for these many years. Now you're going to follow me today. And it just made me laugh. You yourself came in, and whatever, when family comes in and surrounds you, and whatever needs to be done, it's not a question now. People just really come in, and that type of support is needed. The person may not voice it, is needed at that point, because you're at a place. We always talk about footprints in the sand, and we see Jesus carrying somebody. Well, it's at that point we need to be carried, because we're weak, we're wounded, and we need to have that good Samaritan to come along the roadside and see about us and tend to us and give us strength to get back up and move at that point. So it's very important for people to come around them and surround them and get the negative away from them, and pour love into them and let them see Christ in this situation. It's hard to see it, but you can see Christ in this situation.
A lot of times I hear people say when they've lost people, folks didn't come around because they didn't know what to say. And so they felt isolated, and they felt like, oh my goodness, you're the one that lost and people didn't know what to say. But Debra was saying it felt good to have family and friends around her to encourage her, and she didn't have to be the strong one. She didn't have to have all the answers. And even though she has 10 years on her little brother, Pastor Warren, she could let him be her strength. Pastor Warren, is it awkward sometimes? I know you're a man of many words, but sometimes just being there, do you think that's good enough? Do you always have to have 5 scriptures to give people?
You know, but what we go through ourselves as pastors, we go through the fire in order that when people are in the fire, we are able to pull them out of the fire. So God put in deeper holes in deep places too. The things we've gone through in our lives, sometimes we've lost a home, we lost several losses, or going through starting our church, starting our learning center, starting up in all through those, you know, those deep things. But the Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped, evidence of things not seen. So in other words, faith, though you can't see it, is the very substance that you're on. You think about those 3 Hebrew boys that when they said, I'm not going to bow to this image, and they were thrown into the fire 7 times hotter. But as soon as they got in the fire, there was a 4th man that was in the fire with them that took the heat out of the fire. And so that's what Jesus comes.
Yes.
That's the word of God. That's what faith is. Finding that takes that heat, because without it, we burn up. The people that tried to throw him in to the fire got burnt up just from the heat on the outside. So the inside was 10 times, 7 times hotter. But faith takes the heat out of the fire. And we learned what we call, whenever we're going through something, what's called failing forward. We don't fail backwards. We fail forward. Like, may feel like, am I a failure? Did this person, if this loss that happened, was it my fault? So or the person that deals with a loss, then they get stuck and they deal with fear. Which, when you deal with fear, let's say then after fear, you get a vicious cycle of not doing nothing. And when you don't do anything, then you don't gain the experience that you would have gained had you just failed forward and went through it. Because God is probably preparing you when you go through something like that, preparing you for something greater. You don't see it, you don't know it. You're just dealing with the little hole in the ground right now, or the big, we call it a rut. And a rut is a grave with no end to it. It's just a rut. You're just stuck. But if you go through that, and if you don't have any experience, you have an inability to do anything. You just blame everybody for something. They say the pain principle is that hurting people hurt other people and are often hurt by other people. And so therefore, when you tell them something, that pain is still there. They never dealt with it. So therefore, when you touch them, they're on edge. They're getting mad. And it's not you they're mad at. They're still mad at themselves, blaming themselves, and they're stuck. And the time that it happened, they never left it. But they have to learn to just fall forward and say, you know what? I need faith. Faith will take the heat out of the fire and give me the ability to go through this. And so that's why he said, did I throw 3 men in there? Is there a 4th man and one looks like the Son of God? And that, as Evangelist Debra said, the footprints in the sand, that he's carrying you, is carrying you through the situation, and you're still feeling the pain, but you don't have to bear that cross by yourself. Yeah.
Wow, that is very powerful. If you're just now tuning into the Solution Summit, we have just lost so many things in our nation, but in St. Joseph, Missouri, we're mourning the loss of a 2-year-old Raylan Craig, who lost her life last Sunday, a little after 3. She was shot, and the mother was shot. There was another individual in the car that was also shot and survived. And so the funeral's coming up. The community is livid. We're in those first stages of grief. We're praying for the mother, the father, the family. And we have experts on here today who don't want to be experts at pain and loss of a child and loved ones, but we are sharing some tips. Lamina Davis, LD Data Solutions, said when she lost her son, meditation and prayer helped. Debra Townsend, who's now 11 years on the other side of losing her son to a murder in St. Louis, who is my nephew, my husband's nephew. She said talking and gardening and digging in the dirt helped her, these concrete things. Also, she said ministering and helping other people help empower her. And then there was times, even though she is a preacher, a teacher, a statewide salesperson, she said there was times she just let her family come over and encourage her. And so on the stages of grief, we talk about shock and denial. Denial being the first one. You just like, this didn't happen. I can't understand it. I can't absorb it. Is this my reality? What happened last night? And then there's anger. And actually they say it's good to show some anger, not just be numb and shocked, but start releasing that emotion, even if it's depression, even if it's disorganized, even if it's yelling and screaming. But if you don't release that, you could get an ulcer, you could become severely depressed. So we have denial, anger, bargaining, deals with God. God, bring them back. God, did that really happen? If you let them survive this, I promise I will never do this again, or I'll do more. And then depression can set in, and acceptance. Now, is there a time frame for all this? Is there a magic potion that after 90 days of grieving, I remember my husband saying, if you don't stop crying, you're going to have to start talking to somebody. I know you think you're the counselor. I know you think you're the motivator and the mentor, but we've got to start talking through this and getting some healing. And so for you all, sometimes, even though it's been 11 years, Debra, does it still catch you by surprise?
It still catches me by surprise. Oftentimes it's just that red cardinal bird. I never forget the morning after, walking out with tears in my eyes onto the front porch, and there was this cardinal bird just looking at me as though I was communicating with that bird. And so ever so often I see that bird, but that has become a moment of joy for me, because what was sorrow has been changed. And I did the process with God. I went through that situation with God. Matter of fact, I went through it that night, and no one knew that I said to God, you got to explain this to me. Why did you do this? Why did you allow it to happen? You called him to preach, not me. So why did you let this happen? And he never did what you called him to do. You're gonna explain this to me. And I'm gonna tell you, you better be careful what you say, because the very next morning, the next day, God sent a young man to my house. And he talked about my son praying for him, being an evangelist and in the streets ministering to people, turning people to God, and really doing the work of the evangelist. So God had to show me he did do what I called him. It just didn't line up in your eyes. Wow. So it's a time that there are times now, but now they're not painful, they're joyous. I can laugh at a moment that we had or a picture that I see. It doesn't bring the pain because I'm on the other side of the grief now. And so I can live and remember things that he would do. I don't know if my Pastor Warren would remember.
She's going to say the nickname, y'all.
The family was at a ditch down in the country, and he fell off in the water, and he's beating the water, hollering, I'm drowning, I'm drowning. And my Uncle Leo just said, stand up, fool. And he stood up, and the water wasn't even at his knees. So to remember times that were good helps you to heal. It helps to bring closure. It helps you to take you to a place now that, okay, it doesn't hurt as bad anymore. And so it takes time. It takes time. And sometimes you can deal with all 5 stages of grief at the same time.
Wow.
But as time goes on, it gets better. You learn to live.
Wow. Lamina, what do you say to the younger people? You have a lot of interaction with guys and gals that were friends with your son. What do you say to them? And we're going to wrap it up because it is 8:30 now. And what do you say to them so they let justice play out and not take vengeance in their hands or try to create their own resolution so it's a quick fix and someone else winds up dead or in jail? What do you say to these young people and the young adults?
I just say that, it's going to make matters worse, and it's not going to make anything better to seek revenge. I just, a lot of the, one of the young men actually contacted me yesterday, and he was feeling a little, down and depressed because he was friends with the young man, the little girl's father. And so he's feeling depressed and everything. He feels like he wants to go out and do something to avenge her. And I just told him, I said, what are you going to accomplish by doing that? It's not going to bring her back, and it's not going to, it's just going to make matters worse. And here you are throwing your life away for you know, I understand your heart's in the right place with this, but it's not the answer. The answer is being there for your friend, you know, in any way you can, you know, offering encouraging words, you know, just listening. You know, if he needs to just vent, just listen. But don't go out here all gung-ho trying to find whoever you thought did this and making matters worse, because whoever you thought did this may not even be the right person. So why are we going for revenge on things we don't even know? So it's you know, I just told him, I was like, just take a minute, sit down, calm down, and think rationally. Be there for your friend, and don't, you know, don't go out here all half-cocked and thinking that you're doing something good when you're really doing something that's going to make matters worse. So that's
Very
what
good.
I tell, you know, all the kids, they, you know, every once in a while, they'll check on me to see how I'm doing. And then they'll tell me little stories about what's going on with them and everything. And I give them advice on what they should do or what they should not do. And, you know, we've for a few years now, we've had this little conversation back and forth. It's not every day, but, you know, whenever I feel good, you know, once we've talked, I feel good that they got the message and they're not going to go out there and do something stupid. So, I mean,
very
if
good.
anybody wants to come to me and right now that knows him and also knew my son and, you know, tries to have a relationship with me, you know, via, you know, asking advice or, you know, just needing somebody to talk to or need help with anything, you know, I'm always here. Be there for that person right now. You know, don't do something stupid.
And everybody needs a safe place to kind of share their frustration, their anger before you make a decision. If you talk to one or two people, somebody's going to help you get your head back on straight. We all have those moments where we're like, why did this happen? Why am I doing this? And most of the people that count to 10, that phone a friend, they can come back to rationalizing a better plan of attack to have closure. I do want to put this number on here. It's 816-238-TIPS. If you do want to share information to help this family have closure, put yourself in their shoes. You may think, oh, they already have the information that they need, but they may not. And let justice take its course. So Pastor Warren, I want you to end with perfect peace and tell us how you resolve it. But for those of you that want to be a part of healing this community and healing this family, you got to go call 816-238-TIPS. You can also email them now, St. Joe, that's stjoepd.info. You can email them. You can also text message, and I believe it's the same 816-238-TIPS. And just help this baby's life matter for something. Pastor Warren, you were up at 2 and 3 and 4 a.m. writing, and is that something that has helped you? And you actually created a whole book of poems that kind of help heal your heart. So can you kind of share that? And you have a poem called Perfect Peace.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that was one of several of almost 50 poems. And so that was one way that I found when we were going through some difficult times, especially when I had left my job to help found the ministry and found the learning center and the business. And now I'm out of here and you know, and the money's getting tight. And so the way it was writing, and I was a writer. And what's amazing is that, you know, if I had to write now, it's just once you put the pen to the paper, the words just begin to flow. I discovered another gift that I didn't have. And some of those from way back, but when I really was going through, the more I wrote, the more poems came out. And as a leader, when you're leading people, went to a conference years ago, Bishop Jakes, Leading While Bleeding. My 96, I preached his funeral, and grief kept trying to come up, and I kept trying to hold it down. So I want to be strong. Well, the night after everything was over, the night after the funeral, after the funeral was over, and I came back home and lying in bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night just bawling because and I had pain in my stomach and pain in my shoulders because holding back grief. So I had to let that grief out. So when it came down to preaching my nephew's funeral, I was in the pulpit, I was grieving and crying, and other pastors, are you okay? So I'm good. But I was grieving. I had to get my grief out, because once I start preaching, that's not grief that I'm preaching. You know what I mean? I'm using that grief, but I had to get, but when I preached my mother's funeral, I sat in the pulpit, I sat in the audience deliberately first, having already had experience of having to lead while you are bleeding, but you have to allow that process of the bleeding to take place too. So you have to kind of go through that process of letting the scab form, or so you don't bleed out. You have to let the scab happen. So, and then when I preach, then I have already grieved. And if people don't go through the grief process, you create more pain for yourself, and it will come out another kind of, in all difficult times and ways, or bad kind of ways. You have to it's a release. You have to allow that vow to release in order for you to be healthy, and in order for you to heal. God created that. You know, he grieves, you know, and he said several times about his people, they're grieving me. I'm grieved in my spirit. I'm grieved in my heart. Why did I do this? If he grieves and he's God Almighty, then we have to be able to grieve and don't feel bad about your grief. The parents, people I grew up with, as my sister knows, these are country folk, and I didn't see tears. I would see them go through funerals, like, how come they're not crying? I didn't see, and they brought, and the thing they brought us up to be was, be strong. But you find yourself trying to be strong, but I'm grieving. You know what I mean? So how do I be strong? You know, so, but to learn to, even if you're a person that grieves in private and you are strong in public, or you may grieve in public, you know what I mean? But, you know, and try to be, but whatever you do, go through that cycle and allow yourself to be healed. You have to do that.
Wow, thank you so much. We're going to get a copy of your poems and prayers for difficult time. We also have it on spoken word with some really soothing music that really helps. So we will be sharing that. If you haven't gotten your sign for Hate Has No Home Here, it's a message that MidCity Excellence has, just that we're standing for peaceful resolutions with anything that involves crime, that involves discrimination, that involves racial issues, that involves issues that you're struggling with economics. But let peace have its perfect way in your life. And so you can go to visitmce.org or visitmce.com. Lamina, is that right? If you want to get a sign to put in your yard, let's stay together and be unified. We want to thank our special guests, and thank you for tuning in to the Solutions Summit here at MidCity Excellence. And hopefully we can help heal the nation, just one community, one family at a time. Again, we are praying for the family of baby Ray or baby Raylan Craig, and just hoping that some of the tips and strategies we've shared with you today have been empowering, have been life-changing for the young adults that are going through it and maybe experiencing something so tragic and horrible for the first time. Just know from these mothers and from Pastor Warren and myself that we care for you, we love you. We may not have all the answers, but somebody just to be there to motivate you, to coach, to give you some words of hope. And like Debra said, just to be there to listen. Lamina said, I'm an ear, I'm a safe place. If you want to get something off your chest and make baby Ray's life matter for something, if you think you have some critical information, please call 816-238-TIPS anonymously and share what you saw, or if you want to help the family have closure, how you can do that. You can also text message 911 and FaceTime 911 now. I didn't realize that. You can email stjoepd.info. That's stjoepd.info. And we'll just be praying for the family that they have closure. Our last 10 seconds, Lamina Davis, what do you want to tell them?
Just hold tight and don't, just stay calm. We just need calm now. It's not the time to go off and do something that you're going to regret. And if you need to talk to someone, talk to a pastor, talk to a counselor, talk to anyone. I mean, just it's better than going out and doing something you're going to regret later. So just stay calm and just don't do anything stupid.
Amen. Thank you so much. Debra, Townsend, any closing words of encouragement?
We're going to stay prayerful for the family and keep them up before the Lord to give them the peace that they need. I agree with her. Please don't go out and do anything that you will regret. Now is the time just to sit down and be still. Hear what's going on, but don't move without addressing the issue. It's just time to be quiet. It's just time to be quiet. People are looking and watching, and you need to set an example for others. So don't seek revenge. Don't go out and do foolishness. That would only cause additional hurt to the family. It will cause even more problems for the family. So just be still. And if you can't do anything else, bring them some food. Take them something to eat. Do small things that right now they're not even thinking about doing. If you really care about them, just stand with them and for them.
Thank you so much. Pastor Warren, final words of hope and rest and resolve.
Yeah, well, what you just said as far as hope, Jesus says, let not your heart be troubled, and be afraid. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I wouldn't have told you. And I go to prepare a place for you. And when I do that, I'll come again and receive you unto myself. And so you have to know that your loved ones, if they, especially if it's a baby, you already know babies, that you're going to meet them again. And we have to find we have to get ourselves prepared to meet the Lord in the air too, to get our mansion. And as I always tell people, as far as hope, if Jesus is in the boat, you got hope.
That's good. Well, I want to thank you all for watching again, and we just pray for this nation and pray for this community. I'll leave you with Isaiah 23:3 that says, I will keep you in perfect peace if you keep your mind stayed on me. Trust in God, trust in the Lord, and things will get better. We've already had so many tragedies. Please, let's have a peaceful resolve so we don't make our families have to go through yet another loss. And so think about the young'uns, think about your mom and your dad, think about the tragedies that we've already experienced. So we want to thank you all. We're going to go in and end the show right there. You can inbox us if you have any other questions, and we want to wish you a wonderful and peaceful week. God bless you all.